Okay, to start, we will just have a little intro of what those alphas are. I have one here prepared. This is like rocks, and as you can see, you just click and drag, and the rocks will appear. The black area won't affect the sculpting, while the white area will be the most affected. So this is basically if you have a brush that subtracts, the white value will be the lowest point, and if you have a brush that adds, the white will be the highest point. There are some tricks to create brushes that can add and subtract at the same time. We will check that a little bit later, and we will start by doing a full process for one brush. That way you can see all the process, and then you can create your own stuff. Okay, so first step, create the alpha for the brush. Okay, to create the brush, I uploaded a file that you will find in the description of this video. That, to simplify things, and because I don't want to go step by step through this process that we already saw. For example, we are going to use procedural texturing, and we already saw a lot of that. You can find it on my other videos, and I will explain what is going on here, but the file, you will be able to download it. So we have the object that we want to render to make the alpha. In this case, it's a sphere, and I'm using subdivision because since we are using no shaders, if we use, for example, shade smooth, it won't work, and we will see all the faceted faces. So that's why we are using enough geometry to have a smooth sphere without the shading. Then the object, we will have the ground level at the world origin, and the height will be defined by this box, this cube that I created here. So if you want, for example, to render the half a sphere, you place it like this, and all you have to do is go to front view, select this cube, and scale, lock in z-axis, and adjust this to the top point of the highest point of the sphere. If your sphere is smaller, you go here, scale z, and place it there. Be careful not to go lower than this point, because you will see like a plane here, because everything beyond this number will be the same, will be 1 for the brush, so it will remain at the same height. If you're doing a brush that will carve, that means it will subtract from the sculpt. You will have to do the same, but instead of, don't move the object, don't grab it, just scale Z to lock and go beyond, and then place it about there. As you can see, you will get the gradient that goes down. And this is one thing. well, you can see in the shading what is going on. It is using the cube as the object to define the scale. We have this gradient. The top will be the strongest for the brush, and here it will remain unchanged. So you can use whatever shape you want. Remember that this is a height map, not a displacement map, so you won't be able to make like overhang like this. You should always try to have a shape that becomes smaller and smaller as it goes up. The settings for this file are, we are using a camera on the top. It's aligned to the top view and centered on the X and Y axis. This camera is set to orthographic, and you can adjust the zoom with the scale. Remember to leave a bit of margin here because we will have the fall off, and you can have croppings if you set it too close to the border. What else we have? We have the resolution here. You can go higher if you want. The file extension is important. You can use OpenEXR, TIFF. Don't need the alpha. This is 32-bit color. The TIFF can go to 16 here. And I will use OpenEXR for this example. And what else? I think that's all. The color management set to none instead of RGB, and we render. So we get this, save. I already did this a bunch of times, so I'm replacing the older version. And be sure you're saving the correct settings here, and save the image. Okay, so we have our alpha now. I will show you just to explain a little bit more another one that I have already saved. For example, this is a test, but for example, for this crack, I used super simple shape. Then, since I cannot use the shading to affect the gradient, I'm using a bevel with a high number of segments to create this bevel here. This a bit less sharp, and this is to test something later, so I don't need it now. As you can see, I have the same setup, the camera aligned to the top view, no lights or whatsoever. The lights are not necessary because we are not using shaders. And if I render now, you will see I will use this later. Okay, so now we will test this on a. I will go to New Sculpting. Here we will deactivate in topo, deactivate this. This is not as dense as we would need to make it look the brushes look good. So we will use remesh, but I want to mention a few things here. You can, for example, while remeshing, you can press Shift R to kind of see how the density will look before you do it. If you don't want to make all your object density go up, you have an alternative. You can pick, for example, this brush, set the strength to 0, activate in topo, set this to maybe 2, and as you can see, it's like adding geometry on the desired zone without affecting the rest. And then you can use the brush there, but for this case I will remesh the entire thing, so something like that, activating the topo, remesh. Then to create a new brush, we will go to the draw brush. As you can see, you have the different variations of that are inside this tool. We will add another one here. You can copy the same or delete the brush. We will be copying this and name it. For example, we have the new brushes, sphere and sphere. Go to texture, new, go to the texture tab, open, find your new, in my case it's here, your new texture, change this to non-color and go back to the brush settings, adjust the strength 0.5 to start. Okay, the mapping, we will see everything in a while. To start, I will just select the one that I will be using now, area plane, and the stroke to, I think it's anchor or whatever it is called. And I think we are ready to start. So, okay, so we get this. What is going on here? We have the fall off set to smooth. What the fall off does is to add like a gradient on top of your texture that goes from the center to the border. In this case, the smooth, it's like it starts low and it's like curved. I mean, it starts to fall slowly to the border. If you use, for example, linear, it will be a straight gradient, linear gradient. You have the sharp, for example, will be more like pronounced, and in constant you won't have fall off. So in our case, if we want to get the shape as close as the one we used to create the alpha, we will use constant. This is used for most cases when you make details like a button, stitches, or a scar, or something that needs to hold the shape as as unchanged as possible. Then we have to play a bit with the strength to kind of get the shape we want, and probably that will be more or less the half sphere we had. So this is just a basic brush to introduce you to this technique. For example, here we can set up another camera, select a view, Ctrl+0 to bring the camera to that view. Once you're happy with the screen, you can save this file to have always the same camera, to make all your brush set the same way. And once you're happy with it, you can just render the brush settings, click this icon here, select the new icon. As you can see, you will have this here. If you save your file, you will have a relative path here, so you can save everything inside a zip file, for example, and when you open it, it will be still working. Maybe if you want to sell a pack of brushes or whatever, that's the way. Okay, so we have a basic brush, and for example, how can we use this brush on other projects before we go through all the settings and stuff? For example, after you save this file, you can start a new project, Sculpting. The brush is not there, of course, but then you can go to Append, select the file you just saved with the brush inside, go to brushes, and locate the name of the one you saved. In our case, it was sphere again. Yeah, here. And as you can see, you will have the brush ready there. As you import it, it won't have a fake user. So if you want to keep it, you check this. That way, if you reopen the file, it will be still there. Also, if you want to add this brush and have it always there for you to use, what you can do is go to New. I don't know if you use General or Sculpting to sculpt, but in my case I use Sculpting. You can use the General as well, it's the same thing. I will go here, then I will append my file without touching anything. I will go to Append, make it fake user, and go to File, Default, and Save Startup File. This will replace the new Sculpting file, not the default. I will show you. Save Startup File, yes. If I go to New, General, I will have this. I go to Sculpting, nothing there. But if I go to New Sculpting and I press there, I will have the shape. Okay, so now let's see a bit more about the settings of the brushes so you can change them later, for example. Okay, so radius, that's pretty easy. Let's change this to, for a bit, space. Okay, as you can see, if I get closer, the size of the brush is dependent on the view, as we have here. If we change it to scene, when we set a size, no matter how far away or close we are, it will remain the same. And the strength is pretty self-explanatory. It's like how high or low the brush can go. It's like a multiplier of the scale in some way. And we have Addon subtract, also pretty simple. Carves, adds the shape. Okay, so mapping. Area plane will depend on the place you are sampling. That will use the same normal and plane to draw. The view will align the normal to the view, so even if we place it here, it will be facing us. Of course, it will be stretched. Tiled, it's like placing one on the side of the other, so you can do something like this. You can use it more like with different strokes also. For example, like this one, you can have something like this, or also the airbrush, or well, we will see that a bit later. Then useful, well, random, it's random. Since it's using random, it also uses different rotations, and that's why you see the border here. If you change the fall off to smooth, you shouldn't be able to see that. Then curve is pretty, it's more for other things, but for example, I will show you anyway. Control right click to add a point. If you hold the point, you can change the handles, move the handles. And after that, if I recall, yeah, control and left click will add the brush to that zone. You can move it. It can be useful for some things, but we won't be using that now. Okay, so that dots, as you can see, it repeats the shape. This here is to make the shape follow the trace. Now without rake. With rake. That's the difference. With this is that I was able to create a brush that adds and subtracts at the same time. Let me see if I have it here. As you can see, I changed the bias to get this. As you can see, we are getting the crack, but also we are getting this that goes up, and that's very useful to create stuff like, I don't know, for example, stitches. You can do the hole, the scar or whatever, and the stitches that go up this way. And the way I did this is the plane is not at 0, it's like 0.1, for example, and the complete 0 is here in the top of this thing here. And then I'm using the sample VS to push it down. Then we have stroke methods. Dot, just they are dots. It repeats the shape with the rake. It turns, as you remember. Drag dot is interesting too because you can press and then hold to move it, and then drop it. You can do, for example, that's if you change this to scene, you can be adding the same size to different parts. You can also change the rake to make it turn. Here you can change the angle of the texture. If you set to random, it will let you, as you can see, it will set a random angle, and you can set the limit here, so it won't move as much. And airbrush, it will constantly add the shape. It will also build up. Line, it's just line. The stencil mapping, it's interesting because you will have the preview of the image here. You can control click to move it wherever you want, and shift right click and drag to change the size, and control right click to move it around. And once you placed it where you want, let me find a clear place, and then you can, in this case we will use space, you can add that shape there. And well, you should play around, of course, with every option to discover new things and make your brush do different things. But I think that pretty much covers it. You can now create shapes and use them to sculpt. You can make all sorts of stuff depending on what you need. And that's it for now. I think we will be probably doing a few more tutorials to talk about more specific stuff. This is a base. Now you can go further, check all the settings and create more complex shapes. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.